Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host again, and this is episode 109, where we talk about how to stand out during a Kickstarter campaign. All right, now full disclosure here, the guests we're speaking with launched their Kickstarter a while ago, but despite that, a lot of what we talk about doesn't change how these same principles can be used today. All right, with that said, with so many games and other businesses resorting to crowdfunding as a means to finish their project, it's always difficult for games to stand out among so many distractions. Well, it's always a challenge to figure out ways to have your Kickstarter campaign stand out. Our guest shares the many things that they did prior to their campaign launch and how doing so increased their luck and ultimately were able to punch through the clutter to reach their funding goal. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode, and I'm here today with Neal, Laurenza.
What's up, Andrew? How you doing?
It's going good, man. How's it going?
Going good.
All right. Well, so it might sound a little weird because we're not in my house recording this. We're actually at Game Assembly. It's a co-working space that Neal heads up and manages, and it's in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. It's a really great place. And we're in this really tiny little room, so that's why it's a little echoey. So if it sounds unfamiliar, that's why. So anyways, we're here with Neal. I'm just going to go into a little bit more about Neal real quick. So we talked about Game Assembly. It's a co-working space where a lot of indie devs can come here and work.
Probably 80% of the New Hampshire game industry, as far as we know.
Yeah.
There's not many of us.
So he has that tight-knit community of New Hampshire right here and at his fingertips in a way.
Click.
But on top of that, he's the lead at Skymap Games. They make games. They do a lot of stuff, actually. One of the games that they have made is their own first title, Bacon Man, but we'll let Neal get into that in a moment. He's taught at game development at Southern New Hampshire University. He's also the head honcho at International Game Developers Association for the New Hampshire chapter. So big list there. And am I leaving anything out? That seems like
No, I think you got it. Yeah. Plenty of stuff to do.
Awesome.
Definitely.
And then so we got into a little bit of what Neal does. He's going to kind of share a little bit more about, Skymap, because I honestly, I would like to know a little bit more about Skymap and what they do. But before we even get to that, I mean, outside of all this stuff, you're a busy guy. What do you do to unplug, to enjoy yourself?
Oh, sure. So I love tinkering with gadgets and electronics. I play with a lot of like Raspberry Pi, single board computers, and set up lots of stupid little things to do with those, like little cat cams or things like that. Helping my friend build one of those right now for his pet cat.
His pet cat.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. All right, cool. So that's what you do to unplug, but let's just jump back into it in terms of Skymap. What do you guys do?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so Skymap started as an original games company. We made our first game, Bacon Man, began doing that around 2012. And what we figured was we needed some way of bootstrapping the company and actually getting some funds. So we originally started on the Unreal Engine forums, just picking up whatever we could find there, and have slowly worked our way up the game dev food chain until now, where we're working with lots of kind of AAA, which are like the bigger indies, and a lot of people who are ex-AAA. So they were in AAA at one point, they've gone indie, and they need additional development assistance. So we sort of call ourselves a partner game studio, meaning we do our own games, but we also help people build their projects.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys do quite a bit then.
We do quite a bit. Yeah, I think right now we have 6 projects going on, so it's been pretty good.
Awesome. All right, so we got to get to know Neal a little bit, but we're going to go one step further, and that means it's the Q-Box round. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're not familiar with the Q-Box round. It's simply just a series of random questions I'm going to ask Neal, and he has to answer them.
Oh, my God. Help. I'm being held hostage.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, good. All right, so what is your favorite movie?
The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. That's a Wes Anderson film. I love Wes Anderson movies very, very much.
Oh,
That's
nice
good stuff.
Dogs or cats?
I'd say cats. I like dogs, but cats are a little more relaxing.
What's your favorite meal?
I really like curry dishes. Any kind of curry dish is good. Yellow curry, actually. I was thinking a lot about that. Thai curries are good. Indian curries are good.
Do you like Japanese curry?
I do. Some Japanese curries too spicy. If it's too spicy, I don't like it as much. But I like spicy food, but not like the burn your mouth hot ones spicy.
It's got heat and flavor.
Yes,
exactly.
But not one overpowering the other.
Have you ever tried making your own Japanese curry from scratch?
No, but it sounds good. Is this something you've done?
Yes, we'll share recipes later.
That sounds great.
All right, trains, planes, boats, or buses?
Ooh, trains. Trains are cool. Something romantic, Victoria, an old time.
An old time. All right. And last but not least, but what are you playing right now?
I am playing the Tetris Effect. I'm a huge fan of any kind of rhythm style games. And the creators of the Tetris Effect, Tetsuya Mizuguchi, did the game Luminous. So I'm huge into that right now.
Nice. All right, great. So, all right. We went over the cue box round, but now we're just going to dive right into our topic. And this is kind of an interesting one. It's something that people are going to want to get to know a little bit more about. But we'll just get into it. It's how indie devs can make their Kickstarter really stand out. So kind of a preface here with a lot of games and other businesses resorting to crowdfunding as a means to finish their project. It's always really difficult for games to stand out among so many distractions. All right, so while it's always a challenge to figure out ways to have your Kickstarter campaign stand out, Neal here is going to share how their campaign, which it was a while ago and everything, but essentially how your campaign was able to deliver a greasy punch through the clutter and reach their funding goal.
Oh, that was good. Nice. Yeah, happy to share. I think just to preface. Also, Kickstarter has changed a lot since our campaign. So our campaign was July of 2014, and this was we were lucky enough that we were kind of right on the cusp of the time when a lot more indies entered Kickstarter. So we were able to just grab enough attention until the next wave came in. So just some food for thought for people.
No, that's a good idea, because it's like, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is more of like standing out and everything, but totally a good point, because it's like, it's like with anything else, like the first games that came along, like forever ago, they had a little bit more or a lot more exposure. And then as, the industry kept getting inundated with, content and everything else, it can make it a little challenge. So the more so to have to and find ways to stand out.
Right. The democratization of game development has led to a really big influx of games. So now there's lots of people who they want to do game development professionally, and the market is sort of flooded. So it is even more important now than ever to try and find ways to get yourself ahead. Totally.
All right. So let's just kick this off then with, when you were running your Kickstarter campaign, how much of a role did you feel that it played in terms of standing out, in terms of your your campaign reaching success?
Yeah, I think Bacon Man is a very strange game, and a lot of the art was evocative of the fact that it was so weird. So I think that Kickstarter had noticed that, and luckily they were able to flag it as like projects we love, which was really helpful. So the first day, especially early on, that helped to increase some traffic that, Kickstarter had picked up some recognition there. But I don't think there was, it's funny because the more I think about it, there probably wasn't any one particular thing. There's just a lot of little weird events that sort of happened over the course of our Kickstarter that helped to push it over the edge.
Okay. Now, I want to take things a step back, like almost way back.
Sure.
In terms of why bacon?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the time that the game was originally being developed, there was a lot of conversation about wanting to make a game about food, especially because everyone was still in college. So it was like dorm food and, crap from the cafeteria at our school. And we remember there were a particular group of friends that decided, well, a meaty hero like a meathead would be a really good idea. And that idea kind of spun off into all these different characters. At one point we had one who was like a guy made of a baguette or something, and it just went all over the place. But eventually it landed back on just Bacon Man.
Yeah. And you have some pretty interesting characters in that game too. If could you elaborate a little bit on some of those characters?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, one is Feta. He's a samurai made out of feta cheese.
Yep.
Another is Lardlass. She's a large woman who really enjoys eating all the other characters in the game. That's what happens, right? If you're in a world made out of food, it's probably pretty hard to stay in shape. And then there's Pen, and she is a wheat zone guide. She's actually a sort of evolution of this baguette character that we originally had come up with.
Yeah. And she seems pretty badass, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah, she's pretty mean.
Yeah. Nice. So, all right. So let's get back into marketing a little bit or into the campaign and everything. But when you were doing all this, what was your main priority when establishing the marketing tone for Bacon Man?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think our priority in establishing tone was we had to decide what audience are we really trying to pursue. And what we discovered was, from a lot of play testing, people who enjoyed games like Earthworm Jim, which had a very sort of silly aesthetic, didn't take itself very seriously, lots of little puns, jokes, those sorts of things. That was the stuff that we decided to go for. There was actually an argument at one point that how serious should we be? Because we're really serious about making games and we're serious about making something really high quality. But actually serious doesn't help, I think, under most circumstances, unless your game is really intended to be something that's more like simulation, I think. So we decided to, or horror game or something like that. We decided to go just as silly as possible. Nice.
So, and now outside of that and the tone and everything, and this probably, I'm just guessing here. I only know very little about this incident.
Yes.
But do you think that kind of what you just explained set the opportunity that came out with Denny's?
Yeah, this okay, so the Denny's thing was weird.
And just for quick reference for everybody, we are talking about the breakfast chain, so we don't know if you may or may not have
America's
one,
Diner.
America's Diner, Denny's. They've got good breakfast and pancakes, and anyways,
it's good drunk food. Denny's is very good at identifying their target market, and if you're getting Denny's advertising, you're probably getting it either daytime television, and it's targeted specifically at old people who want to come in and get the senior discount, or at 2:00 in the morning on Adult Swim, some really weird shit that comes on and you're just weirded out and don't understand what the heck the commercial was. We fell into the 2:00 in the morning category. So what essentially happened was I got a call from someone during the Kickstarter campaign, probably halfway through, going, hey, I work for this marketing agency, and we're working on behalf of this big client, and they're interested in your Kickstarter campaign. And I thought, there's no way this is legitimate, because you get a lot of spam calls when you're doing Kickstarter, people trying to take advantage and trying to take money and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I didn't really believe it, but I sort of went with it and was like, okay, well, fine then. Why don't you go ahead and send me more information and we can talk. Okay. So I'm actually on my way down to a publisher meeting. The Kickstarter had spawned publisher interest, which we'll have to talk about soon, because that's a big part of it, is who gets the attention from Kickstarter. And I get this call, and my friend's like, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this. Denny's just retweeted a bunch of information about Bacon Man and said that the game looks tight and this other stuff." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And yeah, I don't understand exactly what happened, but there was some marketer that was watching Kickstarter who worked for this marketing firm that was hired by Denny's, and they felt that the game fit really well with Denny's aesthetic of weird breakfast memes and Tumblr and this bizarre thing that they do. And if you go check out their marketing, it's really smart. They've got all sorts of weird GIFs that they produce all day long of, eggs floating through outer space and bacon burning up in the atmosphere and all sorts of weird stuff. And yeah, they felt that, this game aligned really well with what they were trying to, an audience they were trying to capture. So they backed it, and then they posted a bunch of information about it. And, it got pretty significant traction within, that group of 2:00 in the morning people that we're talking about, like a lot of silly, kind of up late stone